Moving to thing number four, we're talking retail sales. If you've been tracking along, we've been talking about this a lot over the past couple of months. But what we actually saw was those trending up. Thing number four, Gary, holiday retail sales up, fueled by discounts and wealthy shoppers. The rich get richer.
Yeah, there you go. So, over the last couple of months, we have done a ton of coverage on this channel of weak retail sales, and we've talked about how money is shifting from full-priced retail to the discounters, how purchases are shifting from discretionary to necessities. We've talked about that a lot. And because of that, a lot of people expected our Christmas shopping season to be very weak. In addition to that, because the shopping season goes typically from Thanksgiving to Christmas, but the number of days in that period are not the same every year. This year's holiday season was 5 days shorter than last year. And with five fewer days to shop, we figured, hey, we're going to have, weaker than expected sales. Turns out that was not the case. Total spending for the holiday shopping period was up 3.8% this year versus 2023, with online spending contributing 6.7% growth. And so sales crushed forecasts. So the forecast was 3.2%, and last year's number was 3.1. So these were terrific numbers. And so the question is, what happened here? Well, it turns out that it was the usual culprits. It was discounters like Target, Walmart, Dollar General. They focused on discounts. They cut prices to push sales. So, listen, if you cut prices enough, people will buy. The other
Gary, how much of this has to do with affluent households and their spending? As we obviously know, in an inflationary economy, tends to be a good thing for wealthy households.
So, Rob, it was a combination. At the low end, the lower income consumer benefited from discounts at places like Walmart and Dollar General. They took advantage of these companies cutting prices. But the big spending increases came from the wealthier families. We're showing high income families spending more than almost 17% more. Um, and the reason for that is because we've had an asset bubble. Pardon me. The rising stock market and rising home prices have been great for people who had money, and also, hard assets like real estate and gold and Bitcoin. Those things have done really well. And so we've had an economy where most of the country is not doing so great, but the wealthy have been well positioned for this. And so they spent a lot in throughout the Christmas season.
Gary, University of Michigan as well. They did a consumer sentiment survey. One of the things that they highlighted was low to middle income individuals don't feel like they're thriving, right? While you're seeing the inverse. Tell us a little bit more about that study, and I think a few other key points in the news just about the real bifurcation you're seeing in what's happening with this spending.
Well, I'm thrilled to see people starting to talk about this because, Rob, at Deep Knowledge Investing, we started talking about a bifurcation in the economy 2 years ago. And what we noticed was that the low interest rates, high real estate prices, high prices for hard assets, a rising stock market, those are great for wealthy people. A lot of times, what people like to say, what the government will tell you is, well, things are rough for poor people, so we're going to print a lot of money and have all kinds of programs to help poor people. And it sounds really good. But what ends up happening is those programs end up creating inflation. And wealthy families who have credit scores that start with an 8 are able to take on debt, and that debt they can repay in dollars that are worth a whole lot less later, and buy hard assets and buy stocks. And that works really well for them. Poor families are crushed by inflation. And so all of these programs that the government says we're going to do this to help poor people, they end up hurting poor people. And we've talked about this before a couple of years ago when the government sent out those stimmy checks. People said, "Oh wow, $1,600 of free money from the government. This is terrific." Yeah, you got $1,600 once, and people's expenses went up by $100 or $200 a month. And so, yeah, you get $1,600 once, but it may be costing you $2,000 a year in perpetuity with a higher price index. These programs never do what they're supposed to do. Um, these programs end up creating inflation that works really well for wealthy people, poorly for poor people. It is misleading, and as a result of this, we've been talking for 2 years about a bifurcation of the economy where most of the country is struggling to pay for things like food and rent, their car, to put gas in the car, to heat their home. And the wealthy have just done extremely well with the rising price of assets. And so, we saw that in our holiday retail sales, and we're starting to see that in studies coming out. This is not a surprise to us, but we're really glad to see that people are starting to realize, oh, wait, this is a problem.